Hello, good afternoon. I can see already everyone is jumping in. Let's wait maybe a couple of seconds. Welcome to our webinar. Before we start, we are delighted to host the MPI team. And before we start, I would like to remind you that there must be no discussion of prices, surcharges, fees, cost, particular customers, revenues, market share, or any other commercially sensitive topics. In particular, you are reminded that no market agreements have been or will be decided at meeting of CABAF, whether they involve prices, amount, or areas. Thank you very much for joining us today. And please, Danya, introduce the MPI team. We look forward to listening to you.
Hello, everyone. Kia ora. I'm Donya. I'm the Manager for Intelligence Targeting and Evaluation. I'm really pleased to see so many people turn up, and I just want to say thank you to Corinne and the CABAF team for inviting us. The MPI team, there's quite numerous people here today. We have Gina Ellis, Senior Advisor from the Invasive Species team, Ken Glassy, a Senior Advisor for the Treatments team, Tamsin Phillips, Team Manager for Systems Verification, Merv Alexander and Mark Stewart, both team managers, Auckland and Christchurch representation, and Ryan and Gabriel North for port operations, and Cherie Langford for target evaluation. And Carlos Scuja has put in his apologies around the DTRC FAK process. I'll be covering that for him. What I will do with you now is I will open up the slideshow where we can work ourselves through it with our various MPI presenters. And at the end of the presentation, I'd like to invite you for questions and answers. I'll hand over to Corinne to manage the microphone and the sound. And I'm pleased to say we're ready to go. Right, can we see? Can someone, Gina, can you just give me a thumbs up? Cool. And welcome everybody. This is the BMSB overview for the coming brown marmorated stinkbug season. And the first presenter will be Gina Ellis. Thank you, Gina. Just unmute yourself.
Kia ora koutou. So first up, I'll talk to you all about the previous BMSB season, so the 22-23 summary. We had around 1,700 dead BMSB and only 44 live confirmed across all pathways last season compared to 62 live in the previous season, so the 21-22 season. Most of the live finds were from passengers and cargo not required to be treated. And no live BMSB were found in offshore treated cargo in the 22-23 season. So the offshore treatment program is working well. Next slide, please. Cool. So we have done an internal review on the vehicles, machinery and parts and the sea containers import health standards, and we will not be doing any changes for this upcoming season. We are looking for the next review of the vehicles, machinery and parts import health standard. We will most likely be adding Uzbekistan as one of our Schedule 3 countries, as there have been some BMSB identified there. However, at this stage, it's not high risk as like to require urgency to go into the standard, as we have minimal goods coming from there. So we're just going to put them on a watch at the moment and inspect goods that arrive from there. So both VMP and CECO contain the BMSB requirements for importing goods during the BMSB risk season. And this season covers all cargo that depart on or after the 1st of September and arrive in New Zealand on or before the 30th of April of every year. Next, please. So when you're shipping within a container and you've treated for BMSB, the container should be sealed, and ideally for goods in, like, say, August that you're looking to ship, if they are sealed prior to 1st September, and are shipped before the 1st of October, they will not require treatment, as we will consider them to be fine, considering that the container will have been sealed. We require time-stamped photos alongside your bill of lading as evidence that this has occurred. So containers meeting these requirements are excluded from the BMSB management as detailed in Schedule 3 and Section 2.1 of the VMP standard and Section 3.1 and 2.1 of SECO. And just make sure that the seal number will need to be clearly visible on the bill of lading as well as the shipped on board date. Next, please. So we understand that there can be a lot of uncertainties coming that just occur with shipping. We will have a generic CTO direction for shipments of used vehicle and machinery parts from Japan, where meeting the before arrival treatment requirements are unachievable during the 23-24 BMSB season. However, please remember that FCL of used parts require treatment at VCE1, not VCE1D. VCE1 is a higher rate year-round, regardless of whether the treatment is completed on or offshore. We'll also be doing a generic CTO direction for shipments which have been sealed prior to 1st of September, but due to shipping delays have not sailed prior to 1st of October. So what I was explaining on the slide previously. This extension will be limited to 2 to 3 weeks. However, it's not yet finalized. However, please get in touch with myself and my team at standards@mpi.gov.nz early if you're experiencing difficulties due to treatment provider availability or shipping delays. We're always here to help. Next slide, please. We also have approved systems that recognize offshore supply chains which implement quality assurance measures that reduce the risk of BMSB contamination. Most of these are for a lot of our vehicles that come from Japan. If you are looking at setting up one of these approved systems, you can find details on our website. And again, you can contact me or my team at standards@mpi.gov.nz for further information. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. I'll just hand over to Ken Glassy, who's the Senior Advisor for the Treatments team.
Kia ora koutou. As noted, and it's a bit annoying every year, the treatment providers need to re-register for the season. There's over 100 currently, and hoping that that'll all be finished by the 1st of September. And the list is on our website where you can click through, and we're always available for advice if you have a treatment question. And if you've been into the website already, you'll notice that it's quite different from last year. They've combined all of their treatment schemes into one list to make it easier to look up and search for the relevant country, which you can do on a map or with the treatment types. And one of the little tricks is to click that arrow down on the bottom by the Power BI to make it bigger so you can read the print. Otherwise, you need a bit of a magnifying glass. So last season, there were several issues. One of the most common was that the address on the certificate that was provided to us was different to that on the list, and we've written to some of the providers that were doing that, and hopefully that's fixed. Sometimes the location address is missing or the treatment records are incomplete, and the odd occasion the treatment didn't comply, and we have found the odd fraudulent certificate, which is annoying, and occasionally there's treatment information missing, so yeah, please check all those before they're submitted. And we have had this ethyl formate treatment in an ABT now for nearly 2 years, and recently providers have applied and been approved to use this gas, and it's a lot safer and not so restricted as methyl bromide, such as it doesn't need recapture. So we encourage the use of that. And we're also working with Australia to get them to approve it as well. It's taking a bit longer than we did. Kia ora.
Thank you, Ken. I'll hand over to Tamsin Phillips, Team Manager for Systems Verification, and apologies to Erin, she won't be here today. From Erin, she won't be here.
Kia ora all. So there are no major changes expected for verification from border clearance services this year. It's likely to remain consistent with the last season. Verification focuses on 4 main categories. These include cargo that requires some form of BMSB management as outlined in the VMP and SECO import house standards. Sensitive cargo from Italy, which is cargo that's likely to be damaged by treatment. BMP cargo that is excluded from BMSB risk requirements, and cargo managed through an MPI approved system. We will continue with proactive verification on cargo from countries where BMSB is native and from non-Schedule 3 countries to maintain oversight and respond to any emerging risks as required. In terms of vessels, documentation supplied by vessel masters and shipping agents is used to conduct a risk assessment around BMSB prior to the vessel arriving. Masters are asked to conduct surveillance and provide reporting of BMSB, both dead and alive, found by crew en route to New Zealand. This forms part of the risk assessment. Accurate and clear reporting by crew reduces the likelihood of holdups and increased surveillance. We will also continue to conduct verification on new vehicles and machinery as an additional measure assurance method this season.
Thank you, Tamsin. Is there anything else that you wanted to say?
No, that's all from me.
Thank you very much. And I'll hand over to Merv Alexander, Team Manager for Border Clearance in Auckland.
Kia ora, everyone. Yeah, I just briefly want to talk about the resourcing in Auckland, mainly because the bulk of the BMSB risk cargo arrives in Auckland. Last year, we were in a recruitment phase, and we've continued that recruitment right through 2022 to 2023, and we'll continue with a further intake this year, and we'll also continue on with recruitment next year. Currently, for the last month, the average booking lag for inspections was around 65 hours. That is dropping continuously because we expect another intake to arrive, another 24 officers to arrive next week, and they will begin training pretty much immediately. So by the 1st of September and right throughout the season, we expect that our booking lag will be around 48 hours for BMSB inspections. That can't be guaranteed. A lot will depend on the economy and shipping. But I'm pretty confident that for this coming season, we'll perform even better than we did in 2022. And there was only a very limited number of complaints about inspections during that time. So happy to take questions a bit later on, but that's the situation as I see it in regard to Auckland.
Thank you, Merv. I'll hand over to Mark Stewart, Team Manager for Christchurch.
Kia ora koutou. Very similar to Merv and following on, similar resourcing situation in Christchurch, but to a lesser scale. We have recruited 10 new officers from May to September this year, following on from 8 in November 2022. So their capability is developing, and a lot of them are now able to work in the cargo pathway. Workloads, we've currently got peak seed for sowing inspection workloads August through November, which is probably no surprise to local agents and importers, with a current inspection booking lag of around about 3.5 to 4 days, but do expect that to come down to slightly less than 3 days by September. It's fair to say that it is despite our best efforts, sometimes it is hard to forecast the seed sowing workloads and when shipments will actually arrive. But we have reduced that booking lag in the last couple of weeks significantly. I guess the key message to agents and importers is to, where possible, give us as much notice as possible of booking requirements so that we can deploy worksite staff to the appropriate pathway. We do have the capacity to redeploy staff from airport or port into the cargo pathway, but that's easier to facilitate with plenty of notice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And I have two presenters, Ryan Richards and Gabrielle North, around port operations. Who would like to take the lead?
Kia ora koutou, I'll take the lead on that one, Dunya. So this is just around the operational requirements and what actually happens on port for these BMSB surveillance. So initially we'll just talk about the vessel on vessel. So we'll collect any specimens from the master. Physical surveillance of the vessel and decks will be undertaken where there's risk goods on those decks. So it's important that we have the vessel plans to us ahead of time to allow us to do that. Then it's checking the traps of present, collecting data. Important that red stickered cargo is not discharged as part of any discharges from BMSB vessels. Once everything is done and we're happy that the vessel is good to go, or the goods on the vessel good to go, we will revoke the nod verbally with the master and then confirm that via email as well. Any interceptions need to be reported to the next port of call, so the MPI officer is aware of it and may increase screening in those other areas as well. As was mentioned earlier, we'll be including new vehicles as well as used vehicles in the surveillance. We may use detector dogs depending on targeted interventions throughout the season. And external checks on cargo due to be transshipped will also need to be undertaken. Important to remember that all suspected BMSB needs is mandatory ID as well. With regards to screening for the manifest for the Schedule 3, that's all Schedule 3 countries, vehicles and machinery. It is important that when you're applying for the BACC with the treatment cert, do that early in the process. It helps reduce the officer's time. It reduces the requirement for notices of direction in some cases and reduces ship delays as well. So the sooner those can be gotten with the treatment cert, the better the process will be for everyone involved. There are sometimes some questions around the notices of direction. So the main one that will be seen is surveillance required, but that we also issue notices of direction for discharge of untreated cargo, prohibitions on that, halting discharge, and very worst case scenario is directing the vessel to leave New Zealand waters as well. Happy to take any questions on those at the end of the presentation. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. I will cover this slide here for Carlos. This is around the DTRC project and how DTRC requests for BMSB Italian containers are impacted. So this is more around the FOK, how it impacts the FOK containers. So there's FOK, if the FOK is from Italy, there's a mandatory requirement that we will be, if you do a DTR request, it'll be in a FOK containers from Italy, it'll be held. What happens then once the hold response is given, this is sent to the manual processing queue, which is going to the target evaluators. At this point in time, I just want to remind you to make sure that the attached documents, the treatment certificates or the sensitive cargo exemption letters are attached to that request, because these will be checked by the target evaluators. And once the target evaluators checks the treatment certificate or the letter and everything is okay, a response will be given back through DTR request that'll be approved, and the container will be approved and the container can move. If the FOK is from a different country, another Schedule 3 country, the FOK will be able to be moved using the DTR. It will not be held. And if the FOK is from the rest of the world, i.e. not from Italy or not from an ex-Schedule 3 country, you will still be able to submit a DTR and it'll be successfully moving your container from the port. Again, this is just for the FOK containers. If it's an FCR container, please lodge an IM1. There's no change there in that process. We'll cover that again in our DTRC updates with industry, and this is just to give you an idea of what it looks like for FOK containers. I think the last slide belongs to Cherie Langford, Team Manager for Target Evaluation.
Lucky last. Good afternoon, everyone. So as you know, we've had 7 additional resources approved this year, which is really great. They started in April, but it does mean we've got 12 new team members altogether that haven't really experienced a BMSB season yet. So we're hoping to get them up and running really quickly, but just be aware they are learning. So if you see any errors, please do let us know. We're going to continue to send out our notifications every week with our processing times and any changes that you need to be aware of. For example, if any treatment providers are removed from the approvals, then we'll try and let you know via that system. So keep an eye out on those. If you haven't signed up to that and you'd like to, flick me an email and I'll send you the details on how you can do that for yourself. It's quite handy to have. My one point for this season is make sure you lodge your applications as soon as you can, which will prevent delays. If you're aware of an issue, engage with the MPI as soon as you can. So if it hasn't been treated offshore, then engage with us. If you've got a consignment arriving very early in the BMSB season and it's been shipped prior to the 1st of September, just check your bill of lading before you send it. Make sure it's really clear on that bill of lading that it was shipped prior to 1st of September. Otherwise, you'll probably find that we'll just come back and ask you anyway. Urgency requests this year, I've just today added a new criteria, which is break bulk consignments that are arriving within 2 working days have been added to urgency criteria. That's to allow us to make sure we've got those BACCs done so that they're not held up on the vessel as it's about to arrive. That often is a bit of a bugbear for people. So it has definitely been added today. You should start seeing that on your replies to the manifest inbox. So as usual, just email any urgency request to manifest@mpi.govt.nz. Make sure you specify the reason for the urgency to make sure that it meets our criteria. That's all I have.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
everyone.
much, Cherie. And now we move to the questions. So panel, be ready for the answers and I will stop sharing. I'll hand over to Corinne and let's start with questions, please. You can put them through the chat or lift your hand.
Yes, if you do have any questions, please feel free to either type them in the Q&A box, or if you raise your hands, I will be happy to allow you to talk. Yes. Danya, can you see this question?
Just a moment. Is there a set template for sensitive cargo exemption letters for goods ex-Italy? We don't have a template, but we can issue one. If you email Cherie Langford what it is that you need it for, we will be able to issue the letter.
To be honest, most goods will just, as long as we can see that they're food, it's usually not a problem. We know that they're sensitive. So unless it's anything very odd, I probably would say you're okay without a letter.
Okay. again, just a note to the members that we're there anyway. So if, you know, questions come up, you know who to call, who to email, we're there. So if you can't think of it today. There's a long same question, food makes sense of Sheree, but what about textiles such as woven fabrics and also glass? Yeah, so look, if you're not sure, email Sheree and she'll be able to look at it to see if it's already covered under sensitive goods. And if it's not, we'll be able to issue a letter to facilitate that across the border. Any other comments there, Sheree?
Just have a little look at the Schedule 3 that's in the Import Health Standard for sea containers. It's
Yep.
got a pretty good list in there of things that are covered, and one of them is textiles, including yarn. But yeah, if you are unsure, then certainly just do send me an email and I can answer it for you.
Yep.
I can take the second question.
Mhm.
If there
Yep.
is cause for a container to be treated that contains sensitive cargo, what is the best option? So if you are shipping sensitive cargo along with non-sensitive cargo, the container with the non-sensitive cargo can be treated, and then within 24 hours, the sensitive cargo should be loaded and then the container sealed. If there's no sensitive cargo, the container should just be treated, and then the sensitive cargo should be loaded within 24 hours and the container sealed.
Could we please have a contact list for who to contact for each instance? Yes, absolutely. I can do that for you. There's a question if the Italian origin cargo is unpacked offshore, then repack at transship port. Will this still require treatment at origin or treatment at transship port? Sheree, that's a question for you, maybe.
Or a question for Jenna.
Or Jenna, yeah,
if
either
the
one.
IT origin cargo.
Yeah,
else, yeah.
ideally it would still be treated. Yeah, it's just can be a bit awkward in our system, just not being able to tell if it doesn't specifically say that it's from Italy, but ideally it should be treated. And anyway, if it doesn't end up being treated and we find BMSB when it gets to New Zealand, it will be directed to treatment.
Right, what I'll do is I'll give you the contact lists back, and we'll make sure that you've got the sensitive cargo list handy as well. And then hopefully you'll know who to contact for further questions. I'll hand over back to Corinne.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Donya. Thank you, the team. It was a pleasure to host this webinar today. Thank you, all of you, for joining. We had so many people at one time. Yes. And yeah, for any question, if you would like to us to contact MPI on your behalf, also please free to send your request to admin@kbf.org.nz. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Thank you.